Hello, welcome to Coach Michael 101, where we listen to music, check out movies, other miscellaneous mayhem, and hopefully we have some fun along the way. Now, we're going to do something a little bit different. We are going to check out probably the best storyteller on YouTube, MrBallen, MrBallen. Check out his YouTube channel, it is amazing. But we're going to check out one of the stories that has fascinated me since I was a little kid, and it's something that I is on my bucket list. Before I die, I will go to this location and spend at least a month there looking just to see, and you'll understand once the story gets started. But this comes from his top three photos with disturbing backgrounds, part 17. He has a very extensive channel. Um, so we're going to check it out. We're going to do his intro, which is always awesome. So, in honor of MrBallen, please invite the like button over to watch a classic MrBallen video, but then play a reaction video from Coach Michael 101 instead. You'll get it. MrBallen, let it roll.
I'm going to share with you three progressively more disturbing stories, and at the end of each of them, I'm going to share with you the photo that is famously associated with them. But before we get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right channel, because that's all we do, and we upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please dress the like button in a realistic bear suit, and then send them to the next Omante ritual in Japan. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Alright, let's get into today's stories.
So MrBallen does 3 stories. We're going to skip the first 2 and go right to the one of interest to me that has fascinated me since I was an absolute little kid, and I just want to know. Portlock, Alaska.
Scattered across the North American continent are many ghost towns, places that used to be vibrant and alive that are now dead and abandoned. In these places, you can find old churches and buildings and schools that are usually in a pretty significant state of decay. The reasons a town might die varies. Sometimes it's because a new railroad or highway is put in that bypasses the town, or the town has just exhausted all of their natural resources, which were the original draw to the town. Mining towns are a good example of that. Other reasons are wars, natural disasters, political wranglings. There's a whole bunch of reasons why towns just suddenly stop existing. But there's one ghost town in North America that has a really unique and very dark reason for why it ultimately was abandoned, and that town is Portlock, Alaska. Portlock, which is also called Port Chatham, is located on the farthest southwestern tip of the Kenai Peninsula. It's easily one of the most beautiful areas in all of Alaska, but it also happens to be very remote. And Portlock specifically, even by Kenai standards, is considered extremely remote. You can only get there by boat or by bush plane. The town was technically founded in 1787 when Captain Nathaniel Portlock of the Royal Navy landed there, but it wasn't really turned into a real settlement until the early 1900s when commercial fishermen built a cannery there. By 1921, the town's fishing economy was doing so well that the US government believed they would be the next major commercial fishing hub, and so they actually established a post office there. Everything seemed to be going great for Portlock until the 1930s, when rumors began seeping out along the Kenai Peninsula that there was something wrong with Portlock. Men from this cannery town were going missing at an alarming rate, and the few that were found again were always found dead and mutilated in a nearby lagoon. Initially, the townspeople believed these were bear attacks, but the natives of the Kenai Peninsula that found out about what was happening in Portlock, they stopped by and they said, those are not bear attacks. Those are almost certainly attacks by a creature we call the nantina, which means half man, half beast. And they are tall, two-legged, hairy creatures that live in the forest right near you. Now, of course...
So obviously the connection there is, right, a Bigfoot-like creature that has been known to the natives there for generations. If you ever look into the story and look into the area, the hairy man in the forest has been a story that is hundreds of years old there. So what makes it fascinating is this hairy man is very aggressive towards people.
Those are almost certainly attacks by a creature we call the nantina, which means half man, half beast. And they are tall, two-legged, hairy creatures that live in the forest right near you. Now, of course, this just sounds like folklore. But when you consider the fact that from 1930 to 1950, dozens of Portlock residents disappeared in that forest or were violently killed and then dumped in the lagoon right outside of the forest, it makes you wonder what's in the forest. But since none of the people who went missing were ever found alive again, there was never any good description of what it was that was causing them to disappear in the first place. Well, with the exception of one case. In 1943, John Meyer, who was a resident of Portlock, was at his campsite and he was crouched down when he felt something leap onto his back and start pummeling his head and hitting him on the side, and he kind of went into the fetal position, and then at some point his dog started barking and caused whatever was on his back to get scared and run off, and so John, who's been badly beaten, rolls over and he looks towards the tree line and he sees this enormous, tall, hairy man running into the woods. And so John gets up and he stumbles his way into town to try to get help, and he's able to tell someone what happened to him before he ultimately succumbs to his injuries and dies. After the John Meyer incident, another group of Portlock men were up in the forest doing some hunting when they discovered these enormous 18-inch long tracks, and they followed them to a clearing where it looked like there was this epic death struggle, that clearly two huge animals had gotten into a struggle here. There's blood everywhere, there's pieces of what looked like a bear or maybe a moose, and then these tracks continued out of this clearing and went right up the mountain, and the men did not dare follow those tracks to see whatever it was that emerged victorious in this clearing. Even the Alaskan newspapers began speculating that something was off about Portlock. This was more than just some crime being committed.
I love that photo, how dense the foliage is, how once the people left, how quickly the world reclaims its space.
There's something happening there that we can't understand. And so by 1949, when people were still going missing mysteriously in the forest, and then other people were turning up dead and mutilated in the lagoon, the townspeople said, enough. This is an unsafe place to live. We don't know what's causing this, but we have to leave. And then practically overnight, the town evacuated, leaving behind most of their possessions. The only person that stayed a little bit longer was the postmaster, because he had to wait for the post office to be shut down. And he said it was horrifying, that he would see things walking in the trees, and he would hear these horrible sounds, and so he was eager to get out of there. And so in early 1950, he was allowed to go, and then that was it. The population of Portlock went down to 0. After they left, none of the people from Portlock or any of their family members ever went back to Portlock. So the only people that have really ever gone back to Portlock are people that unfortunately wound up there, like in the 1970s when some fishermen got caught in a storm, and so they sought refuge in Portlock. But after setting up their camp, they saw something huge walk past them in the tree line, and it apparently was so terrifying that they literally packed up their camp, went back in their boat, and then went back out into the storm to avoid whatever it was they saw. Besides the fishermen, the only people that have gone to Portlock are people that want to come face to face with whatever it is that drove the people out of that town. But to put in perspective how few people do that, there's almost no modern photographs or videos of Portlock. But there is one very eerie modern photograph of this building that's right in the heart of Portlock. It's one of the very few buildings that didn't collapse, and it's located right next to the forest where many of the men who went missing were last seen. And it's also not far from the lagoon where many of the dead men and dead people that were taken were found. And even if you don't believe there's some nantina running around the forests of Portlock, you have to understand that something was killing and taking these people in the forest that you are looking at right now. And to date, we still have no idea what it was, which means this is one of the creepiest pictures you will find on the internet. So that's going to do it, guys. If you found the secret in today's episode, let us know in the comments what it is and where you found it, so give us the timestamp, and if you're the first to do that, we'll pin you at the top of the comments section. If you enjoyed today's video and you haven't done this already, please dress the like button in a realistic bear suit and then send them to the next Omante ritual in Japan. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss our weekly 3, 4, even 5 video uploads. If you want to get in touch with me, you can direct message me on Instagram or on Twitter. My username for both platforms is the same. It's JohnBallen416. I also have a ton of content over on TikTok where my username is MrBallen. I also have a second YouTube channel called MrBallen Shorts where I post random short videos. If you have a story suggestion, please submit it to our subreddit just called MrBallen. It's linked in the description below.
So I'm gonna leave MrBallen on the screen there. Looks like he's half asleep, but So this story I heard when I was little, like probably 5 or 6 years old, and is absolutely fascinated me ever since then. Of course, the prevailing three theories, right? It's bears. Okay, that's probably the most logical, or the initial response is obviously bears doing this. But the manner in which the bodies were found, the condition of the bodies, and in one case, a large metal piece of equipment was used to beat one of the people to death, and the piece of equipment weighed about 200 pounds. So a bear is not going to use a piece of equipment. Um, Second theory is a serial killer, right? Because back in the 1930s, they didn't really, know what a serial killer was. They existed, but we didn't really have a term for it or an understanding of it. So it certainly could have been a serial killer who just happened to find their way to Portlock, Alaska. And then the last one, the nantina, the big hairy man of the woods. So I want to know. Ever since I was little, I wanted to go visit. So my plan is to go before you know, I get too old to do it, but it's definitely on my bucket list. Anyway, if you like what you saw today, if you have any thoughts on Portlock, Alaska, or if you are arranging an expedition, contact me. I will go in a heartbeat. But leave a comment down below, leave a like, subscribe, turn on the post notifications so you don't miss a single video. This is Coach Michael 101, where we listen to music, check out movies, other miscellaneous mayhem, like MrBallen, great YouTuber. Check him out. And hopefully, we have some fun along the way. I'll see you next video.